Welcome to episode 5 of today's Candor. I'm your host, Barika. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. In this episode, I'll be discussing learning how to make decisions, do what's best for you in the midst of your healing journey, and not thinking that you must put a pause on your life until you are fully healed. As usual, I will just give a personal story towards the end, just to talk about how I had to come to terms with this concept of being able to continue my life and not thinking that there was a quote unquote perfect time for something. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I'll start by just saying something that I really had to teach myself. I'll start by saying that this was something that was a challenge for me to understand that there wasn't a perfect time, that there may be a better time to do something, but not necessarily perfect, and that you have to continue to live as you are healing. So when you take risk, when you take risk, or even if you're making a change that is something, it might be smaller, may not be considered a risk, but any change that you may be making in your life, in the midst of your healing journey, the process you experience in that change is a part of your healing. Let me just say that again, because it took me a while I understood the concept, but I really had to dive in and understand and comprehend, if you will, how was I going to manage the two? How could I balance the two? How could I possibly work through an experience that hurt me and continue my life? Instead of me saying I was going to do that, I thought that I had to pause certain things or wait until a perfect time. So let me say that again. When you decide to make a change in your life in the midst of healing, the process you experience while you are making that change is a part of your healing journey. Working through a traumatic experience or an experience that hurt you allows you to continue your healing, and you never know who you may help in the midst of doing so. Sharing your story, sometimes we want to keep everything to ourselves. Sometimes we say it's too personal for someone to know or the world to know, or, we don't want people in our business. And that's perfectly understandable. It's totally understandable. But sometimes we have stories that, of course, they're personal to us, but it might not be too personal. And we may be able to share it to just help someone else who may be going through something very similar, or, may just be in the same boat and they need a little nudge. And sometimes hearing something from someone else, a stranger, especially, sometimes we don't need to hear it from people that we know. Sometimes we need to hear it from complete strangers so that we aren't wondering if this person is just saying something to us or sharing it because they are, near and dear to us, or maybe in our corner. So sometimes just being able to talk or share an experience that is personal, but being able to help someone while sharing that experience. It also allows you, when you're sharing an experience, it also allows you to, even if it's not about, everything is not about if this one thing is going to fully heal you. As we know, healing takes time. Healing is a process. It's different for everyone. There's absolutely no blueprint to healing. So when you realize that you are in your healing journey, but there are things that need to change in your world, you start to figure those things out when you start taking action. You can't figure out what you need to do, what's best for you, by sitting on it. Of course, you have to do pros and cons. What is the best thing to do for you? You just don't jump right into things. You don't jump right into a situation. And as I've stated several times in my past episodes, writing things down, doing like a brain dump on paper, if you will. But if you sit back and you're doing too much thinking, so much thinking that you're never moving, you're never taking action, you can't heal. It only makes you dwell And when you're sitting by yourself in your own thoughts, you're dwelling on what took place. It's human nature to do so. So the best thing to do with that time is to figure out what you need to do. What is the change, one, that you're looking to make? And once you have that solidified, you then start to take action towards the goals or the goal so that you can start the healing process. It happens simultaneously and we don't realize it. It was something that I didn't even realize. We are so caught up in our day to day, and we think that in order for us to make a change or to take a risk or to somehow just make any little progress in our lives, even if it's the smallest thing, we think that we have to wait for something. We have to wait for a perfect time and to be 100% healed. But the thing is, who's to say when you will be 100% or fully healed? Because maybe, and it's unfortunate, but maybe just when you think that you are healed, you might be healed from something, a different situation. But sometimes life just throws those constant obstacles at you. Sometimes people refer to it as when it rains, it pours. And sometimes that's true. We experience things at times that are, it just comes back to back to back. And you're just wondering if you can catch a break. And so it's not to say, well, when I'm healed from this, because healing from something might take a couple months, but other things that might have been a more traumatic experience, what if that's taking you years? Now, are you placing your life on pause and not doing anything for you, not making any progress because you're stuck? You're stuck in a world of what happened with that traumatic experience. And yes, it hurts. It's not to say that something that hurt you, that you should just pass by it. You don't take the time to understand what took place. It's not saying that you should get over it. By no means. But once you've sat with what has happened and you can move from it, you have to continue to progress through life because time waits for no one and no one is guaranteed the next day. No one is guaranteed to wake up tomorrow. With that being said, when you continue to progress and you are working through a hurtful experience or some form of pain, when you're working through it, you're also coming out of your comfort zone. When we sit and we just dwell on what or who might have hurt us, that is only continued pain. That is not allowing you to heal. We think that if we shutter ourselves away from the world and we don't continue to move on with our lives, we think that if we do that, that it's the best medicine, when in reality, it's not. It's only continuing to hurt you, because the more you sit with it, you try to figure out, is there something you may have done differently? Like for example, if the situation included you and someone else or other parties, you're wondering, is it something I did? Was there something I could have done differently? What did I say? How did this happen? Was it bad timing? And when we start to get into our own heads and we create scenarios, and it might not have even been what was really taking place. We start to make up all these different scenarios and hypotheticals and what happened and how did I do this? And that's unnecessary. We think it's the easiest thing to do because it's easy to sit at home by yourself in solitude and only dwell on what happened. And once again, it's not to say that anyone should rush out of, if something happened, that they should just get over it. We all need our solitude at times. But being able to come out of your comfort zone and do things that you like, because of course that's going to automatically make you feel better, just doing something that you enjoy. Even if it's something a hobby, even if it's watching your favorite movie, something that makes you laugh, just so you can maybe get an hour of just laughter. But when you shut off everything, your healing process becomes stagnant. So you have to work through it how you see best fit. because once again, there is no blueprint for it. Do understand that healing is a combination of time and experiences. You experience certain moments and emotions, and they all come together, and it contributes to your healing process. Some of those emotions may not be great, but it's okay because you're getting it out. Sometimes you just might need to cry. Sometimes it's a certain experience that allows you to get it out. Sometimes you get to say, that made me feel so much better. It might be something that you experienced with a loved one. Or maybe you met someone that they give you this great story, but there's little jewels in the story. Maybe the whole story doesn't have anything to deal with you personally, but just little gems in there that allows you to think and relate it to what you've been through. So just being able to have those experiences in time and combine those two, that also allows you to work through a process, that healing process. So what I'd like to do is give my story about how I have thought that things should be perfectly aligned and waiting for perfect times and things of that nature in order for me to make a decision. Or sometimes we're looking for perfect signs, if you will, and trying to figure out what you need to do next. So what I'll do is give an example of my story is in creating this podcast. I'll give the story just behind how I really came about creating it and what really pushed me to do so, but also what I felt like hindered me from creating it, because it has crossed my mind more than once to actually launch a podcast. And then one day I just said, Barika, you've got to get started. Stop pushing it off. Stop putting it on pause, because you'll look back and you'll say, why haven't you done it yet? And no one wants to do that because it'll be regretful. But as we know, regret is pointless because you can't change anything in the past. So for my story, if you listen to my first couple of episodes, I've talked about how I really came to the realization, if you will, of this being a gift, being able to talk to people, being able to help people, relate to people so easily. I came to the realization that it was a gift, but it took me so long. And if you listen to my first couple of episodes, I've given a little of the story behind that. So for years, I've encountered people who would say this is a gift, right? But for me, it wasn't about not paying them any mind when they would say that. I just wasn't digging deep enough. I wasn't soul searching enough to really say, oh, is it a gift? I just thought it was something normal, especially when I would hear that in my teen years. And then when I got into my early 20s and started hearing it, I would think a little differently of it. But once again, I didn't act on it. I graduated college at 23, and my degree is in political science. And so I thought I was going somewhere with that. I didn't think about this gift that people were saying I had. I just thought it was something normal, something that other people had. And I didn't know how to see it differently, if you will. I would think, well, I've met other people that are very relatable and very approachable and make people feel good inside when they talk to them. So I didn't see the difference. I'm like, oh, well, I don't know why it's a gift. What am I really supposed to do with that? So it has taken me a very long time to understand that it is something I have, and it's something that I should continue to craft and hone in on and perfect, because there have been strangers that have felt really good just behind talking to me about something very personal. So when I just launched my podcast on June 4th, June 4th, 2024, that wasn't the very first time that I've thought about a podcast. I've thought about launching a podcast or something similar, you know, maybe something like a YouTube channel. I've thought about this several times. I can't even tell you how many, to be honest, because it has crossed my mind several times to do something similar to, you know, maybe just being on a larger platform, if you will. YouTube channel, podcast, creating reels on social media. But I kept getting in my own head about what would be so different about me. How should I make it different? I kept getting in my own head and questioning myself instead of really just digging deeper and saying, well, Barika, this is something you have and you can present it differently and you can do this differently from everyone else who has done it. I had to really understand me. And some of it I put off because I was in my own head about, well, when I have a story, is it going to be too personal? And there are some things that I know I won't share just because it is very personal to me. But I do want to share a lot and enough so that people can understand who Barika is. I want my audience to understand who they're listening to. And so I said, that's what I need to do. And once I started realizing this was a gift and not just seeing it as, oh, well, there's so many other people who are doing the same thing on larger platforms and social media and all the things. Once I started realizing what I could share, what I could provide, and what I could contribute, once I started to realize that, I said, okay, well, this can be healing for me as well. And like I stated in one of my past episodes, one of my friends mentioned it too. She said, while you are creating these episodes and being so relatable, you're also continuing your healing journey. So I sat down earlier this year. I sat down and I started researching about launching a podcast, what it looks like, what do I need to do, understanding that it doesn't need to be perfect. It needed to be quality, but it didn't need to be perfect right off the bat. And that's something that I've had to learn as well, is to not be a perfectionist. I want things to be very neat. I want them to be very much giving a great quality. I want to deliver great quality episodes, quality content. But I understood that I didn't need to have this great big equipment in the room where I was going to record to make it happen. I didn't need to have a grand following. As I did my research, I had to understand that it was just time for me to share my gift. Once I understood the basics and what you need to launch a quality podcast, I had to get out of my own head and say, Barika, this can help you heal. It can help you continue to heal. It can also teach you. I can continue to learn. When I'm creating these episodes and I'm just sitting down and I usually work on something daily. So, of course, I'm releasing the episodes. I'm publishing them weekly on Tuesdays, but on a daily basis, I'm doing something to perfect the podcast. I'm doing something to make sure that I know which episodes are coming up because I have a list of things I want to discuss, and I just continue to add. I continue to jot down ideas and notes and talking points so that I can deliver quality content. It's not about it being perfect because everyone is not going to like everything. So I had to get out of my own head that it wasn't going to be special enough or different enough. And just everything from the research, from choosing a topic to create for that following week, all of it is a piece of my healing. All of it contributes to my healing because as I'm writing down different ideas and just taking different notes and understanding what point of view and perspective I want to come from in the upcoming episodes, all of those things contribute to my healing. And I don't know it always right off the bat. Sometimes I realize it when I go back to read certain notes, tweak certain things, add to my episode list, things of that nature. But also, I've just been enjoying the actual process, enjoying that I have found something that I really like, that I'm passionate about, because I've always liked to help people and just talk to people about anything, honestly, but things that might be tough for them. So I've been enjoying the process, and it's definitely in just the past few weeks of me actually recording. I'm like, oh, I really love doing this. And every day I'm figuring out, what else can I add? How can I make it better? What other things can I add to each episode, or add to just my marketing strategies, or whatever the case may be? So it's something that I really like, and I'm glad that I continue to stop putting it on hold because I thought that it wouldn't be special enough, or did I think that I need to have something else to offer? How would it be so much different? I'm so glad that I continue to progress in the midst of it all, because no matter where you are in life, obstacles will be thrown at you. It doesn't matter if you could have all the money in the world, you can be the kindest person. At the end of the day, we all experience things, some things that are just out of our control. So you can't wait to say, let me be fully healed. You can't wait to say, let me make sure that this is in place first. Yes, some things, of course, by all means, you want certain things to be in place. If you are starting a family, for example, you may say, let's maybe wait one more year until we have our finances really solid. Things like that. Definitely you can wait for a better time, if you will. But some things, jumping into it and getting out of your comfort zone, that also heals you, because you never know what you'll get to experience, and it will just bring you out of what you're used to. Because maybe what you're used to, maybe your norms, are also contributing to your pain. We don't think about that. Sometimes your norms and what you're used to, and being in that comfort zone, that may also be contributing, or what we think is our comfort zone. Let me say that. Sometimes what we think is our comfort zone really isn't. It's only comfortable. And I'm putting air quotes around that. Sometimes it's comfortable, or we think it's comfortable, excuse me, because it's what we're used to. And of course, when you're used to a certain routine or certain habits, or just, a certain person or people, sometimes it's hard to break away from those things, because you're like, well, if this is my comfort zone, and even though it doesn't feel the greatest, how do I know what's going to be over there when I decide to make a change or go a different route? So sometimes it's, that comfort zone really isn't comfy. It's just we think it feels good because we've psyched ourselves out. And maybe that quote unquote comfort zone is what is holding you back from actually progressing, from actually going through your healing journey. So that's something to think about as well. It's not always, I need to make this change or do something new, just for the hell of it. Of course, there should be a reason behind it, and it shouldn't be emotion based. It should have some logic to it, some rationale, some understanding of what it comes with, but continue to progress. Because sometimes coming out of those so-called comfort zones, you start to feel the healing almost immediately. You start to feel it almost immediately, because you come to find that really wasn't as comfy as I thought it was. And that's okay. But being scared doesn't help either. Because when you're scared, you remain stagnant. You're stuck in just whatever it is that makes you feel a little bit okay, makes you feel that, oh, I feel kind of good because it's what I like. Come out of it. So, of course, I have a Pinterest quote, because I love Pinterest. And this one, I saw the name on it. Excuse me if I'm mispronouncing it, but the name I saw on it was Young Pueblo. And the quote says, "Throw away the idea that you need to pause your life until you are fully healed. This is a different way of being attached to perfection. Progress happens when you make better decisions in the midst of living." You can simultaneously heal your past while being open to the present. So I love that quote because although we can't change what has happened in our past, we can simultaneously heal while being open to what is to come. Because if you're not open to, just possibilities, if you're not open to what your goals can bring you, to how you'll feel when you achieve something that you have been wanting to achieve for so long, if you're not open to entertaining that, you'll never know. And once again, time waits for no one. So you can't wait. You don't know when you will feel healed. You just don't. You can't say in 3 months, I'm going to feel better about that situation. You just don't know. It may be sooner than that, but it may also take longer. And you have to be able to be okay with that. But also when you continue to make progress instead of putting your life on pause, it also helps you to take your mind off of what is hurting you or has hurt you. It helps to preoccupy you, if not 100% of the time, some of the time. And even that is a stepping stone. Everything doesn't always need to happen all at once or at 110%. And that's what some of us fail to realize. And that's why we don't some of us don't celebrate the small wins, if you will, because we think that we're so caught up in two things. We're so caught up in instant gratification, especially the newer generations, so caught up in instant gratification, but also everything having to be 100%. It doesn't. Celebrate your small wins. Celebrating doesn't mean you have to go all out about everything that happens great, but at least acknowledging it. And I've spoken before about having a gratitude journal. I have a gratitude journal that I ordered from Amazon, and I love it because of just the different ways that it's broken out into like the daytime section and then the nighttime section. I will link it. I'll either link it or I'll put something on my Instagram. I don't have it right in front of me. So I'll put it on my Instagram just exactly which gratitude journal it was. But even if you just wanted to search for it on Amazon, it's one of the first results that comes up even when I first bought it. But it just has, you put today's date. I'm just trying to remember the page right off the top of my head. You put today's date. It has a quote at the top of the page for each day. It has a cute little quote. Some of them are inspirational. Some of the quotes are to make us think a little deeper. So I like that. And then you'll put 3 things that you are grateful for. And that's why I'm saying everything doesn't have to be about these large wins or overcoming something grand. So 3 things that you're grateful for. It has a space for what would make today great. And then it has the nighttime section of just what happened. I think it says what happened that made today great, something along those lines. And then it has what did you learn today? So I love that it's broken out because sometimes if you just have a blank journal and you try to create it as a gratitude journal, you may know from time to time what you want to write. But I like the prompts in this gratitude journal because it just literally gives you just that. It gives you prompts to put down, what you're grateful about and things of that nature. So I really like that. So understand that everything doesn't have to be 100% for you to say, you know what? I feel better today. I feel good about this. So continue to work through, continue your life. Please do not pause your life because you don't know. It is not a guaranteed time when you will be fully healed. So with that being said, thank you so much again for tuning in. Continue to connect with me on Instagram at Today's Candor. If you have any any topics that you would like to hear me discuss, you can leave them in the comments. You can leave them on my Instagram. If there are any ideas that you want to hear me discuss, I'll do that. And of course, The podcast is on all major platforms: Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, and more. So please continue to follow, like, and share. And until next time, stay safe and stay candid. Everyone have a good one. Bye-bye.